Hello everyone, welcome to Coaster Hour, and today I will be ranking my top 10 roller coasters I've ever ridden as of now. My opinion could drastically change in the future with me riding new coasters every year. I have ridden 70 coasters around North America, and remember that this is my opinion and that this isn't a definitive listing, and it is completely fine if you disagree with me. After the video, I actually suggest you put down in the comments your top 10 coasters or some of your favorites, as I'm always curious to see how others' rankings are different than mine. With all that said, let's get on with the countdown. Starting us off at number 10 is Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain. My favorite roller coaster, manufactured by Bollinger & Mabillard, or B&M for short, is a flying coaster and the tallest in the entire world. What I like about Tatsu is that it is both graceful at times, but it also has very intense moments. My favorite and the signature element of Tatsu is the pretzel loop. It is one of the most intense inversions out there, and you feel like a magnet attracting to the track. It is that intense. The first drop is also a lot of fun, as you feel like you're diving like a fighter jet or a falcon. Tatsu is also a very smooth ride, which also helps it provide a great experience. The reason I don't have Tatsu much higher is just because I like airtime in the coasters I ride, and this really doesn't do much in that department, as it is more focused on being intense while giving you the sensation of flight. But even at that, Tatsu was still a fantastic coaster and definitely worthy of being my number 10 coaster. Coming in at my number 9 spot is Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm. This intimate accelerated coaster may be a short ride, less than 40 seconds, but it sure packs one heck of a punch. As for its best moments, it's pretty much the whole ride since it is so short. It begins with my favorite launch of all time, which goes from 0 to 82 miles per hour in 2.3 seconds, which is currently the fastest accelerated launch in North America. It is very intense. After that, you go into the top hat element, which has some good airtime. Then you drop into these bank turns, which are pretty intense and give a great sensation of speed. And then your ride comes to an end. The trains also look like a car from the 50s, which is pretty cool. And also, Accelerator gives a very smooth ride. So roughness, rattliness, it's not really an issue, at least in my opinion. And of course, I do wish it was a longer ride, but as it is, Accelerator is one of those coasters that, despite being a short ride, is extremely memorable. Number 8 on the list is Storm Runner at Hershey Park. Another intimate accelerator coaster cracks my top 10, and what I like about it is that after the launch, which I must say is very good and pretty intense, is that the ride has a solid layout filled with airtime and hang time. The airtime you get on the top hat is really good, and the hang time on all the inversions, including the flying snake dive, is great. Even with that being said, it still feels a tad too short, but it still packs in a great ride for what it is, and that is why Storm Runner is my number 8. My number 7 coaster on the list is Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. The first wooden coaster to make the list, Ghost Rider is my favorite coaster at Knott's Berry Farm. What once was a rough Custom Coasters International wooden coaster was retracked and renovated by the great company Great Coasters International, otherwise known as GCI, into the smooth and incredible coaster it is today. What I love about Ghost Rider is that it is a long ride and it is packed with airtime, as well as good lateral forces. The wood around you acting as head choppers also adds to the fun of the coaster. The pacing, though, isn't the best, as you take some of the turns slowly, though you do get some lateral forces during these turns, so that's pretty cool. But despite that, it still is an amazing ride. Some of my favorite moments is the first drop of the tunnel, the drop off of what was once the mid-course brake run, which gives awesome ejector airtime, and the 3 back-to-back kills toward the end of the ride, with each giving some strong, sustained airtime. This coaster gets even better at night though, and the experience is made even crazier in almost complete darkness. It probably gives some of the best night rides of any coaster in the entire country, so it is no surprise that the Ghost Rider makes my top 10. It is my number 7 roller coaster I've ridden up to this point. For my number 6 spot, I have Gold Striker at California's Great America. This GCI coaster is my favorite wooden coaster I've ridden up to this point. What is so different about Gold Striker is that it utilizes tunnels that were created originally for noise control, but it also gives the ride a unique look and makes it stand out, and it also serves as pretty cool on-ride elements. Gold Striker is very smooth for a wooden coaster and features the very comfortable Millennium Flyer trains where the seats feel like you're sitting on a comfy couch, but on a roller coaster. The first drop in the tunnel and the first airtime hill are my favorite moments of the ride, but the rest of the ride is also very good as Gold Striker has incredible pacing, lateral G-forces, and great airtime moments while not feeling too short. Gold Striker doesn't rank any higher on this list because while it is a terrific coaster, it lacks the wow moments featured on some of the other coasters coming up. After riding this coaster, I can safely say that California's Great America struck gold with this wooden coaster. For me, I have Superman El Último Escape at Six Flags Mexico as my number 5 coaster. This Morgan Hyper being on this list and this high will be a shocker for many, but trust me, this coaster is really something else. The funky looking pre-lift section actually has some good airtime on the drop out of the station and the 2 hills leading up to the chain lift, something you wouldn't expect out of a pre-lift section. The first drop, after the chain lift of course, is actually pretty fun too, but the highlights of the ride is the airtime hill after the shockingly very forceful turn. Yeah, you heard that right, this ride is actually pretty intense. And what I call the airtime buffet after the mid-course brake run, which barely even slows down the ride at all, which gives 3 sustained awesome ejector airtime moments. Those 2 moments give some of the best airtime I've experienced on really any coaster I've ever ridden. The turns on this coaster, as I mentioned earlier, are also quite intense, which I wasn't expecting. Also, the pacing, it's actually really good, which I wasn't even expecting out of a Morgan Hyper coaster. This coaster, it's just so weird. You look at it, you wouldn't expect too much. It honestly kind of looks mediocre in the POVs, but then you actually ride it, and it's actually really good. The only downsides to this coaster is that it is a little bumpy, and it hurts a bit when you land back in your seat after an airtime moment, but I look past these problems since this coaster has those incredible airtime moments, and it's just overall a terrific coaster. Number 4 is Twisted Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain, the first coaster constructed by Rocky Mountain Construction or RMC to make the list. Twisted Colossus was once the legendary classic racing wooden coaster Colossus, which unfortunately became very rough and unpopular in its last years of operation, so RMC converted it into a hybrid coaster, completely changing the layout in the process. The first drop of both the blue and green side fling you out of your seat, giving Twisted Colossus one of the best first drops you could ask for, though I do prefer the blue side over the green side when it comes to first drops, just only a little bit. Most of the airtime moments on the blue side are also some of the best airtime moments in California, providing some great ejector, and the 0G stall on the green side can also give some great hang time. Some criticisms I have for the ride though is I'm not a big fan of how the blue and green sides have such a long break in between them, which weakens the pacing of the ride in my opinion. And I also wish the green side had as many great moments of airtime as the blue side, or had more standout moments, and it is in my opinion the far weaker half of the ride. Also, I didn't really mention the racing aspect of this coaster since it rarely ever duels nowadays, which is really unfortunate. But that's just kind of how it is, so that point would be kind of irrelevant. Still, this coaster has many incredible moments, and it is for this reason that Twisted Colossus takes the number 4 spot on my list. At number 3, I have Medusa Steel Coaster at Six Flags Mexico. I have back-to-back RMCs on my top 10 list, and this is for a good reason. Medusa Steel is truly a world-class experience, so much so that objectively, this may be the best coaster I've ridden. I have really no complaints of this ride as it has everything you'd expect in a great coaster. Great airtime, incredible pacing, just absolutely whipping you through everything, and it is a very smooth ride. All this even though it was running with a shortened train when I rode it. There are so many great moments on the ride that it is hard for me to narrow down favorites, but to keep the video from running too long, I'll say that my favorites are the off-axis airtime hill toward the end of the ride, which sends you flying one way and back the other. The last barrel roll, which though is quick, gives awesome hang time, and the drop off the second turn, which gives great ejector. The only reason it doesn't rank higher for me is that the 2 upcoming coasters have more incredible moments, in my opinion. I will also mention that the queue line for this ride is actually quite something and caught me off guard, but I won't go into much more detail for those who don't want to be spoiled. And I just gotta say that Medusa Steel is a great coaster, and definitely a great number 3 for me. For my runner-up, I have Skyrush at Hershey Park. Talk about a powerhouse. This intimate masterpiece is the unquestioned airtime king of all the coasters I've ridden. The first drop and the first 2 airtime hills give some of the strongest ejector airtime on the planet, no joke. And along with being an airtime monster, this coaster is also very intense, with the first turn being one of the most intense moments on any coaster I've ever ridden. This coaster is also pretty smooth, but the one very controversial aspect of the ride is the restraints. Some people claim that the restraints cause too much pain on their thighs to make the ride truly world-class, with some enthusiasts even calling Skyrush thigh crush. Others either don't believe the restraints cause that much or any pain, or are able to look past this flaw to see the world-class coaster that Skyrush is. For me, I did find the restraints only to be slightly painful, but not bad enough for me to dislike or take away from the ride. Skyrush could honestly be my number one coaster if I got more rides on it and rode in the back row. But as it is still a terrific coaster, and I definitely am a big fan of Skyrush, and I think it is a perfect fit for my number 2 spot. Before I get to my all-time favorite coaster, I'd like to give some honorable mentions to some coasters that just barely missed the list. Fahrenheit at Hershey Park. A fun, intimate coaster with fun inversions and a little airtime. It's just not quite as intense as I'd like it to be. Lightning Racer at Hershey Park, a pretty good wooden coaster that is made even better by the racing aspect, but in a way feels more family-oriented and the pacing could be better. Flight Deck at California's Great America, a great B&M invert that is intense with a beautiful lake setting, but it just feels a little too short. And Giant Dipper at Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. I probably love this classic Woody way too much, but it is running pretty smooth for its age and gives some great airtime due to the buzz bar restraint. The layout though is weaker than quite a few of the other coasters ahead of it just because it is that old, so it couldn't quite make the list. Now let's get to my number 1 coaster of all time, which is the legendary Aero 4th Dimension coaster, X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain. No matter how many times I ride it, this coaster absolutely blows me away every time. It is the only coaster I still think feels absolutely out of control. No, X2 isn't quite the smoothest coaster out there or the most well-paced, but what it is just flat out intense and crazy. I also have one thing to say though before I get into my favorite moments, and that is to ride in the inner seat of the car that leaves the first drop last. I know that sounds complicated, but if you do this, you will get, in my opinion, the best possible experience on X2 because the inner seats are much smoother than the outside ones and the back gives the most intense ride. Now for my favorite moments, the first drop is probably my favorite moment found on any coaster. You feel like you're falling forever, facing toward the ground, and the flip at the end just makes the first drop even more incredible and nuts and intense. Words really can't describe the first drop. The other moments where the cars flip are also unbelievably powerful and out of control, and that is probably how I would describe this coaster. Completely out of control, and I absolutely love it, and that is why X2 is my number 1 coaster I've ever ridden. Enjoy the video? If you did, I would recommend checking out some of the other videos and other things I have for this channel and considering subscribing to get more coaster and park related content. Alrighty, well that's all folks, and thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time here on Coaster Hour.